This Civic Media podcast is sponsored by UW Organ and Tissue Donation. Organ donations are desperately needed, and now is the right time to become an organ donor. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. Go to heroicdeed.com.
This is your WXCO Daily News Roundup for Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 FM and 1230 AM in Wausau.
For WXCO News, I'm Brittany Merlot. Democrats were hoping to gain a majority in the state legislature with new maps. That didn't happen, but they did flip some seats in both the state assembly and the Senate. Until Governor Tony Evers came into office, Republicans had free rein in choosing which policies to push forward. But Evers changed that dynamic overall. One of the biggest upcoming policy issues is the next state budget, from K through 12 education to funding local government, the UW system, and corrections. It impacts every Wisconsinite. UW Green Bay scientist David Halpap.
There's no doubt that Republicans still have the majority and they can sort of proceed in that fashion. But I think perhaps some folks will be thinking about the next election cycle and maybe the implications of specific decisions that they'll be making during this budget process.
Democrats flipped at least 10 assembly seats, and now the Senate will have 18 Republicans and 15 Democrats. They're hoping that this lays the groundwork to take a majority in 2026. And should UW-Madison split off from the other 12 schools in the UW system? Stuart Waddles reports that some think so.
UW-Madison should break from the rest of the UW system. That's the recommendation from a legislative panel. The proposal suggests giving UW-Madison its own governing board, separate state funding, and potentially the authority to take on debt for construction projects. It's only a recommendation at this stage.
And just last week, the entire state was in a drought. Now, things are changing with the recent rain, and improvements have been made. Mainly throughout central Wisconsin, Marathon County now sits abnormally dry. Areas of concern are still focused far north, where 14% of the state is in a severe drought condition. But 41% of Wisconsin still remains in a moderate drought. So, we need the rain rolling in this weekend. One thing that was not a top headline for this election was our national park system. Conservationists wish it got more attention. Here's Savannah Tomey Olson with more.
The National Parks Action Fund scorecard tallies the voting records for U.S. House members on bills about park funding, endangered species, and oil and gas development in and around parks. In Wisconsin's delegation, all 6 Republican House members got failing grades on the scorecard, and the 2 Democrats got A's. Kristen Brangle with the National Parks Action Fund says they're not trying to pick on members of Congress, but they hope the scrutiny will help change some votes moving forward.
This is just part of our value system. Do we love these places? Do we want to take care of them? Do we want to make sure they have adequate park rangers in them? And this vote is just a direct way to tell whether or not your member of Congress cares about the future of our national parks.
Overall, Brangle says more House members got F's than A's because last year the House voted to cut funding for national parks by 13%.
And around 100 people will be losing their jobs in Wisconsin after Molson Coors announced the closure of 2 breweries on Wednesday. The company is closing its brewery in Chippewa Falls, where 56 people are being let go there. They said they are closing 2 smaller brewing operations in the state and moving production to their main site in Milwaukee. Molson Coors Chief Supply Chain Officer Brian Earnhardt said following the end of a large contract brewing agreement and amid an ongoing canning line investment project at our Milwaukee brewery, we've made the decision to centralize statewide production at our main site. The Leinie Lodge and adjacent pilot brewery will remain open. And the former president of Leinenkugels, Dick Leinenkugel, said, "It's clear to me that they determined that the savings resulting from the closure were significant enough to justify this difficult decision." The closures will be effective on January 17th. Veterans Day is right around the corner on November 11th. That's Monday. While this day honors the sacrifices military members have made for our country, it also serves as a reminder of the ongoing struggles that current service members are facing. Here's Melissa Kay with more.
In Wisconsin, over 37% of service members find it difficult to cover expenses. According to recent Household Pulse survey data, members of the armed services are experiencing financial strain at higher rates than the general U.S. population. Over 40% of service members report difficulty covering their usual household expenses, compared to 36.6% of all U.S. adults, while over 71% of the general population stress about recent price increases. Nearly 80% of military personnel share similar feelings. A key issue service members frequently raise is that their basic allowance for housing has not kept pace with the rapidly rising cost of housing.
And the new legislative maps allowed Wisconsin Democrats to gain some ground in the state legislature. They flipped at least 10 seats in the assembly. Although Republicans still have the upper hand, this squashes their supermajority. Democrats believe this puts them in a better position to gain chamber control in 2026. UW Green Bay political scientist David Halpap.
As districts become more competitive, it makes it more difficult for those who are elected officials in those districts to really propose policies that are too far left or right of center, simply because they know they're going to have to answer to voters that are more center than they used to be.
He says the new legislative maps leveled the playing field for legislatures in a way that Wisconsin hasn't seen in more than a decade. That made it possible for Dems to pick up key seats in districts covering the northern Milwaukee suburbs, the north side of Madison, as well as Richland and Sauk counties. Also, the Green Bay area and much of the Fox cities. All across Wisconsin, school referendum questions were on the ballot, with over 1/4 of districts asking to go over their local tax levies. Jimmy Kuska has the details.
Over 1/4 of districts asked a total of 138 questions for a total of over $4.2 billion to pay for operations and facilities. The majority of these ballot measures passed, highlighted by Madison passing 2 questions for a total of $607 million.
In Marathon County, school referendums passed in Antigo, Colby, Marathon City, Marshfield, and Mosinee. It only failed in Medford by a small margin at 55% voting no. And have you ever heard of Cocoa Roz? Because there are hundreds of them all around you, right here in the state and even throughout the country. It's a unique, nonprofit, community-based network of volunteers of all ages and backgrounds, working together to measure and map precipitation. While a group of people, about 26,000 of them, are collecting and reporting rain and snow amounts. Cocoa Roz is an acronym for the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network, and anyone can be a part of it. These precipitation reports, gathered in our own backyards, are recorded. Data is then displayed and organized in a nifty map that's easy to analyze and apply to daily situations, ranging from water resource analysis to severe storm warnings. Free training is included, and it's easy to sign up for. Just head to civicmedia.us, click the News tab, select Weather, and you'll find everything you need, even a link to affordable rain gauges. And it's the Hmong New Year celebration this weekend in Wausau. 34 Hmong dancing groups, different vendors, and so much more will be coming to the Convention Center in Rothschild to celebrate the New Year. You're invited as well. It's on Saturday at 6:30 p.m., and the Hmong New Year has been celebrated in the Wausau area since 1986. I'm Brittany Merlot for WXCO.
UW Women's Volleyball tonight. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The UW Women's Volleyball team in Madison at the Fieldhouse against the Iowa State Hawkeyes. The Badgers in 3rd place in the Big Ten. College basketball, the Badgers men's team with a 79-67 win over Montana State. Head coach Greg Gard says the Badgers' next game is against the Appalachian State Mountaineers Sunday morning at 11.
Quick turnaround here for App State coming in on Sunday. Another good team, different than what we've seen maybe for the last couple games, but a little bigger. But there's a lot of good things tonight, and we'll build off of that and continue to try to get better.
NBA, the Bucks with a 123-100 win over the Utah Jazz. Andre Jackson Jr. getting his first start, helping out on defense. Damian Lillard.
I thought he had a great game. I think every good team has somebody that you could point to as like a disruptor, energy player that just brings that to a team. And I think, it was obvious with him out there, his pressure on the ball, the deflections, chasing down loose balls, just a lot of those hustle plays, those energy plays that can bring energy to a team, but also those moments where, it looked like the other team is about to, have something happen for him, and then his energy and his effort and his motor comes into play for us, like that fast break where Brooke is chasing down Patty Mills. He make him, throw up a high floating layup and transition, and then another guy is following it up, and Dre come behind and block it. So that's just the kind of player he is, and I think they felt his presence out there tonight.
The Bucks' Gary Trent Jr. only playing 8 minutes before dropping out in the first half.
Back spasms. Yeah. So I saw him running down the floor in the second quarter, and I turned and he's not running normal. I saw that.
That's the Bucks' Doc Rivers. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. Stop the presses. There's a new film about zombies headed our way. Twilight star Billy Burke will head the cast of the new zombie thriller horror movie Outbreak. The show tells the story of a park ranger whose son encounters several people with zombie-like symptoms, probably a headache, fever, and a slight case of the chills. How come we haven't seen a zombie rom-com yet? It's only a matter of time, folks. If you're tired of watching Nicolas Cage films in the comfort of your own home, you'll be interested in this, a new Nicolas Cage film festival. The festival is called Nicolas Uncaged and will celebrate several films from our national treasure. See what I did there? The event will take place over the course of the next 2 months in New York at the Metrograph Theater. Some of the films showcased include Adaptation, of course, National Treasure, Con Air, Moonstruck, Red Rock West, and David Lynch's Wild at Heart. The festival starts November 8th and runs through January 2nd. After signing a multi-picture deal with Lionsgate, Taylor Sheridan is turning out TV shows at an alarming rate, such as Tulsa King, Yellowstone, The Mayor of Kingstown, 1883, 1923, and Lioness. Lioness in particular just became the 4th biggest premiere on Paramount+. The show found its way into 3 million homes in the first 7 days of its release a couple weeks ago. The show stars Zoe Saldana, Nicole Kidman, Morgan Freeman, and Michael Kelly, and is supposedly based on the CIA's actual Lioness program. If you like high-powered weaponry, military jargon, and lots of gunfire, this is the show for you. Warner Brothers Discovery is reporting that its streaming or direct-to-consumer service is booming as its theatrical business declines. The studio says it's gained over 7 million subscribers in the third quarter alone for this year, according to Screen Daily. This is the biggest gain ever for subscribers that has been reported since the launch of Max in 2020. Everyone is chasing Netflix. Thinking about heading to the theater this weekend? Here are some films that might be up your alley. Hugh Grant stars in Heretic, a film about 2 young missionaries who knock on the wrong door and end up fighting for their lives in a house owned by the nefarious Mr. Reed, played by Grant. The film is getting mad reviews at 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. Check out another film in wide release this week called Weekend in Taipei. It has kind of a Mr. and Mrs. Smith feel to it, but reviews are very mediocre so far. If you want to get a jump start on your holiday movie watching, you have 2 choices. Best Christmas Pageant Ever is being released wide and pulling an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, but has a 100% favorable audience score. Another Christmas film in limited release this weekend is Christmas Eve in Miller's Point, a comedy drama starring Michael Cera and Elsie Fisher, where a family descends on their home for the final time. The film is currently getting an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. If you're scoring at home, that sounds like 4 winners to me, so let's go to the movies. For more showbiz fun, tune into Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Mostly sunny today. We'll get to the low 50s for a high this afternoon. Tonight down to the lower 30s. Tomorrow, a little sunshine early, then clouds and showers in the afternoon with a high in the low 50s. By Sunday, cloudy with showers and a high in the upper 40s to near 50. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Right now, it's 39.
That's your WXCO Daily News Roundup from Civic Media. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts. Find more news at bullfallsradio.com. The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.